Welcome to the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. I'm Wade Mathews, the Be Ready Utah manager here at the Utah Division of Emergency Management.
You are.
I am. Thank you very much. And joining me is Ken Kraudy, an outreach specialist here at the Be Ready Utah, also a voluntary agency liaison here for the state, former emergency manager for Sandy City. The credentials just go on and on and on, don't they,
Thank you,
Ken?
Wade. Yes, they do. Yes,
And
they do.
I appreciate you being here because today we are going to take viewer questions and comments. So it's just like off the cuff. We got to be smart about what we're talking about.
Sounds exciting and challenging for us.
Oh, it could be. And we're going to start first of all with earthquake. We've got a lot of questions on earthquake preparedness, which is a good thing to be talking about here in Utah,
Yes.
earthquake country.
I'll say.
First question comes from Marcus Ortiz. I don't think it's the Marcus Ortiz, but he says, what about if you are driving? And I think he's talking about the protective action for earthquake. And basically, you just stop the car, pull over on the side of the road if you start feeling the ground shaking, and try not to stop under a bridge or on an overpass. Try not to stop under power lines or trees, and just stay in the car until the shaking stops.
A lot of it just makes sense. When stuff like that happens, your mind sometimes just gives you the right answer. You just need to follow what your mind is telling you.
Okay, excellent, good point. All right, Ken Patty Dragonaski Brown says, so where do we shelter when it takes place when everyone is in bed asleep? We don't have desks or tables in our bedrooms. And she's referring to the common protective action for earthquake: drop, cover, and hold on.
Right.
Get underneath a desk, table, a chair, hold on till the shaking stops and gives us cover overhead. But what about if we're in bed?
Well, first of all, take a look and see what's over your bed. You might have a bookshelf, or you might have something that could do some damage if it falls. And so make sure that whatever you have over your bed is not going to be harmful if it falls.
That is an excellent point. You know,
Thank
that's that preparedness beforehand. Move the things away from the bed that could fall.
Exactly.
During the earthquake, that would be a before earthquake type of a thing. During an earthquake, you just stay in bed and put a pillow over your head, protecting your face and neck and stuff, your eyes from glass that might be shattering, splinters, things like that that could be falling around in the room. So you just stay in bed and cover your head on that one.
The other thing is to have some tennis shoes or something underneath your bed, because oftentimes the first thing that happens when an earthquake happens, especially at night, you jump out of bed and you're starting to walk on all the glass that's been broken. And so having some good footwear to put on right underneath your bed is a good thing to do for earthquake.
Excellent. Again, a before earthquake preparedness step.
Right.
And I would add to that, putting a flashlight by your bed too.
Good.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, the next one, Cameron Child Waka, I think, says, I thought we were supposed to stand in door frames. Can you explain the change for me, please? And yes, that was a common protective action practice back earlier in the days of earthquake preparedness, common in California. But basically, if the ground is shaking really violently from a high magnitude quake, you're not going to be able to move very much anyway. You're not going to be able to get up and run to a door frame. You just drop, cover, and hold on wherever you are here, right now.
That's the best thing. Drop, cover, and hold on. Get some cover over your head rather than try to find a door frame that may or may not collapse.
Or does not provide any cover. And the other risk there is the door slamming back and forth might injure your fingers or hands or things like that. So we don't recommend door frames anymore.
No.
Okay, drop, cover, and hold on wherever you are, underneath a desk, table, a chair. Next question from Nikki Jo Hatch. How safe are basements during an earthquake?
Good question.
I think it's an interesting question too, because there's people have those fears about, well, what if an earthquake happens when I'm here or here or here?
Yeah.
But the thing to remember is it doesn't matter where you are. You drop, cover, and hold on.
Wherever you're at.
Yeah. Upstairs, basement, main level, in the bathroom, whatever, you drop, cover, and hold on. In the bathroom, that would be like jump in the tub. But drop, cover, and hold on wherever you are. Okay? So it doesn't matter if you're in the basement or not. All right. From someone who's known as me, says, this may sound stupid, but I live in a bottom unit apartment in a building with 3 levels. What does someone like me do if a big one strikes? Won't the 2 upper levels come down on us? Kind of freaks me out.
Yes,
so what do you think about that?
Well, again, wherever you're at, drop, cover, and hold on is really the way to go. Certainly, if you've got structure over your head during an earthquake, that can be a problem. Thinking about it and maybe doing some mitigation on your own about having, what are the exit routes you've got out of your home? What windows can you get out of? Being aware at least of what you can do to escape from the bottom floor is something you can think about.
Yeah, we don't expect a lot of building collapse
No.
in an earthquake here
No.
in Utah. There are what we call unreinforced masonry buildings that are older
Yeah.
structures that could have a potential, but not a lot of buildings and homes and apartments, newer apartments, do we expect to collapse in that way. So the risk really isn't that high, I think, of being on a lower level.
Often it's the facade outside the building that collapses, and so that comes down, but the rest of the structure sometimes still stays.
Which is why we say if you're inside, stay inside, or
Right,
outside, stay
right.
outside. You don't run into or out of a building when the earthquakes are hitting because of those things that might be falling off of the buildings. But yeah, just wherever you're at, drop cover and hold on. And all right, I think that kind of covers those earthquake protective action questions. But yeah, let's go to that next question there you've got.
Here's a question from Nick Ritchie. Question, can you provide information on what a citizen can expect to receive from a point of distribution, or POD, after the big one, specifically about rations, water, and provisions? And that's an excellent question. Oftentimes when there's an earthquake, it may take days or maybe even weeks before FEMA arrives, but they are on their way. And in the location I was in Sandy City, actually, we actually practiced PODs, points of distribution. Elementary schools were set up, their parking lots, and tables were set up, volunteers would come. And water is probably the first thing that you're going to be receiving. Plenty of water, because that's such a critical issue. And then blankets, depending upon the weather and so forth. After that, it kind of depends on the situation, whether there'll be food, and maybe tents or something like that. But maybe water and blankets are going to be the first thing you're going to be receiving. But be aware of where the pods or the points of distribution may be located. Elementary school parking lots, again, were the ones that were used in Sandy City.
As well in Tooele County, when I worked at Tooele County, we did some surveying with FEMA to come out and identify what were some potential points of distribution locations. And a lot of those were at local elementary schools, some county locations, county buildings, and things like that.
But your location may be different, and so make sure you check with your city and watch and see what the announcements are about pods.
Exactly. Paying attention to the warning systems, the methods where we would be getting emergency information out to the public about where shelters are being set up, where your triage and treatment locations are, and where the points of distribution are, because they may not be at a school, but some of those have been identified as good locations. Some of the other commodities that you might find there would be some bread or cheese or milk or maybe ice. I think ice in the summertime
MREs, could be there too.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
And it would be definitely organized with volunteers, with routes where you could just drive in and out probably and get quick access to whatever commodities are being made available to you.
Right.
And I don't think there's any charge. Is there, Ken?
There's usually no charge. In fact, never has there been a charge. You just drive in, you pop the trunk, and volunteers will throw it. You don't have to get out of your car because they want to keep the traffic moving.
Yeah.
And so that's the way pods, points of distribution. There are also points of dispensing, which is another pod.
Yeah.
Points of dispensing would be where they're distributing medications. And in the case of a pandemic, for example, points of distribution or points of dispensing would actually be established for medications.
Which would probably be a similar situation, an identified location, drive-through type situation where you could receive the medication without getting out of your car possibly, or and that would be run through health departments most likely.
I've seen some exercises where banks were actually set up as points of dispensing, and so you could drive up to the window at the bank, and there was some security there involved because of the medication issue, and they were able to dispense the medication in a proper way.
Exactly. In Tooele County, again, that was exercised at a bank location as well. I mean, those the health departments would be running our points of dispensing. Thank you. All right, good question there. And the next question from with a few minutes we have left, Angela Creel, I believe, says, when I moved in and I found that these that a company had attached a wrench to the gas meter. I clipped it loose and put it into a kitchen drawer. Not long after, I found they had attached another. Nice diligence on making sure there is one there. I just don't want to have to fight those plastic zip ties if I need to turn the gas off in a hurry. Boy, we could talk a lot about this question.
Yeah, but that's a good question, and we've got an answer, I think, for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's important to know when to shut the gas off.
Right.
After an earthquake, it's not an automatic. Everybody thinks go shut the gas off because we had an earthquake. You only shut the gas off if you suspect a leak, right? Smell it, hear it, see it, or if your house is twisted off the foundation a little bit.
Because the only way you can turn the gas on is if somebody from the power company comes, or the gas company, and turns it back on.
Yes,
Otherwise, you have to leave it off.
Right, you should have a professional come and turn it back on.
Right.
And if we all shut the gas off, how long is it going to take
weeks or
Dominion
months.
Energy? Yeah, it could be weeks or months to get around and turn everybody's gas back on. So first of all, that's important to know is when to shut the gas off. Speaking of Dominion Energy, they don't really recommend keeping a wrench tied to the meter. They say keep one close by, but having one right there at the meter is too tempting for people to come and mess with kids and things like that. So keep one close by, but not necessarily.
Maybe hidden somewhere.
Hidden close by. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the kitchen drawer, I suppose, if you think you might be able to get to that, or someplace else close by, like you say. But yeah, you don't need to zip tie it to the gas meter anymore.
What good questions we've got.
Absolutely, and we really appreciate all of you that have been watching our Be Ready Utah PrepCast, commenting, asking questions on our social media accounts, and we encourage you to continue to do so, and we'll try to get to as many more of those as we can. And remember to, thank you, yes, ShakeOut. Our behind-the-scenes producer, Brian, our
good job,
our
Brian.
photo team crew, our one-man production team has reminded us that we have the Great Utah ShakeOut coming up on April 16th.
April 16th. That's a Thursday.
Yes, it is. The governor has declared that Thursday, the third Thursday of every April, as ShakeOut Day. So basically, drop, cover, and hold on wherever you're at.
That's it. And register online for that.
Yeah.
Tell us how many have registered.
Well, we're over 500,000 right now, I think. We're just a month, just over a month and a half away or so. Yeah. And we hope to get that number up to 1 million people again. That's what we've been shooting for the last few years, and we've been getting really close to that or exceeding that in a few cases. But you go to BeReadyUtah.gov and you click on the ShakeOut box up there on the top right, and you can register for ShakeOut. That's basically an earthquake drill. Drop, cover, and hold on, 10-15, wherever you are, on April 16th. And practice some of these preparedness or these protective actions that we've talked about.
Yeah. And you can tell what you're going to be doing on the ShakeOut Day, too. It asks, what kind of special exercises are you going to do with your family or with your school or with your workplace?
When you register?
When you register. Yeah,
okay.
You can indicate that.
All right, great. All right, once again, thank you for watching, for your questions and comments, and we'll try to get to more of those in another episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Like what you're seeing? Have a question about anything related to emergency preparedness? Or do you have a comment about something you've learned as you make a plan or get a kit? We'd love to hear from you. Comment or reply to us on Twitter or Facebook at Be Ready Utah with hashtag BRUPrepcast or in the comments on YouTube. We'll talk about it on one of the next episodes of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Don't forget to share these videos and your own adventures in preparedness with your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers, because anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. See you next time.